Hi everyone, welcome to the JMU X Labs AR for Social Media Filter pop-up. My name is Carly and I'll be your host during these videos. This session is part of our Pop-ups 2.0 collection, which is a slightly more technical category of pop-ups. With that being said, absolute beginners are totally welcome, and you don't need to be a tech whiz to follow along. This pop-up is broken down into several different videos, so feel free to pause or take breaks when you need to. We also recommend for the best viewing experience that you watch all the videos in the designated order they're given. For this series, we'll be using Spark AR Studio, which is a free platform that makes filters for Instagram and Facebook. As we go through this series, I'll be going through some different tools and making some examples, but as we go along, feel free to experiment and personalize things and make them your own. The really cool thing about AR filters is how easy it is to customize them and make something really unique. We'd love for you to share your creations with us on Instagram or Facebook. We're super excited to see what you all make. And if this topic is interesting, consider checking out our AR/VR class for next semester. So, without further ado, let's get started. For this pop-up, you'll need a Mac or Windows laptop with Spark AR Studios installed, an iOS or Android phone with a Spark AR Player app, a USB cord, an Instagram or Facebook account, and a lot of creativity. To download Spark AR Studio, you can simply search for it or go to sparkar.facebook.com. Or from there, you can go to the pink download button and download. You'll also need to go to the App Store or Google Play Store and search for Spark AR Player and download it. We'll need this application to test our filters later. Once you finish downloading both of those, open up Spark AR Studio on your laptop. You might need to create an account or sign in. On the homepage, there's a ton of different templates that Spark AR already has set up. They're definitely worth checking out if you're looking for some more examples. For this video series, we'll be focusing mostly on filters that have to do with face tracking. So to get started, let's open a new project, and we'll select a blank project. Once you've opened up your blank project, it should look something like this. We're going to take a quick tour around the screen to see all the tools available to us. Over here, we have the scene viewer. This is where objects that are present in our filter are going to appear. If you go ahead and click on them, you can see that they get highlighted on this view here. So for example, we have the device with its camera, and then we also have some lights, and then we also have the microphone. We don't really need to worry too much about the lights. This is more if you're using 3D objects or things that require more advanced shading, but we'll mostly be using 2D objects or things that don't require much shading. As you can see, as we click on things, we get a bunch of properties that pop up over here. This is how we're going to edit their attributes. Down here in this corner, we have the asset viewer. This is where all the materials and textures and sound files and other things you're going to use on your objects get loaded from and stored. And in this middle area, we can basically see the scene that's over here, but the actual objects of what the filter is going to look like. And we also have a little mini view here of what it's going to look like on the mobile device. And we can go ahead and change this to be whatever device we want, which is pretty cool. Also, another useful thing is if we go over here to this left corner, we can go to 2D view, which if we're not using 3D objects and we just want a straight on view, we can get a much better view of that. Let's go ahead and add our first thing to the scene. So let's go to focal distance, add, and we'll add a plane. So now we have something on our screen. If we look at these tools up here, we can move them either by dragging these arrows, or if we go ahead and we click here, we can then adjust the size of the object. And if we want to rotate things too, we can also do that. If we come over here to the sidebar, we have a couple more options we can play with. This top part of the bar has to do with the video feed you're seeing on the screen right now. You can stop it, or you can play it with some of the templates they have, or if you want, you can go in and use your own camera. So that's pretty nice for testing. And if you go down here to this bottom section, this is the part of where you're going to basically export and test your AR filter. So now that we're a little bit more comfortable with the tools, let's see if we can do something cool with this square here. I'm going to go back to this plane object, and since I was messing with the rotation, I'm going to go over here, and I'm actually going to make this 0. This is kind of an example of you can either type stuff in to change their attributes, or you can drag depending on what's available. I'm also going to move this back to the transform. And I'm going to put this kind of in the bottom middle of my screen. Alright, I have a cool logo from the X Labs that I want to put on the square. So how do I get it there? So first thing we have to do is we have to add a material to this plane. That can be done by simply clicking on the object and then going to materials. And that'll kind of give us just a blank material covered in whatever this is. But we don't want just a random color, we want to change that. So we're gonna go into materials, and the way we do that is either if you just have like a solid color you want to do, you can just click on color and change it. But for us, we want to have a cool texture. So what we can do is go to texture, choose file, and I have this logo here, so I'm gonna click on it. And if we want to go back and do color again, you can see that the image actually gets overlaid with that color as well. Alright, so obviously my logo's a little bit squished right now, so I want to change that. Let's go back over here to our third option, and that's going to let me make this a little bit longer. Alright, well now if we see on our phone view, it's now a bit too long to actually fit on the screen. So we can go back to this left tool and we can shrink it a little bit. Oops, my bad. It was the original tool. And then we can move it back to the center with that tool. Ta-da! And we already look much more professional. Now, as we went through that process, you might have noticed a couple things. Here in this assets part, there's two folders that popped up. The first one was materials and the second one was textures. The materials are essentially what goes on the object, which you can see over here if you click on the plane. The textures are what go on the materials of what you want that to look like. So it's kind of an interesting relationship between the three of those. So now that we've added this little logo here at the bottom, let's add something that actually moves and corresponds to my face. Because right now, no matter where I go on the screen, that's staying right where it is. So to get us started, let's go to focal distance, right click, add, and then we're going to do a face tracker. And for this, let's go back into 3D mode. So if you go back into 3D mode, and you can rotate the camera using the command button, or I think the Windows button on those kinds of computers. Sorry, I'm a Mac user. We can kind of turn and see like it in like 3D space. So if we go back to face tracker, right click again, add, and we're going to add a face mesh. Now as you can see, there's like this little 3D thing in front of my face in the scene. It looks kind of creepy right now, but it'll look a lot better in a second. So the next thing we have to do to make this a little bit less crazy, let's say we want to make my face smoother as a classic filter. So what we can do for that is we can go to materials down here on the right side, click it, and we're going to want to create a new material, because as it is right now, if we click to material 0, that's our material for the logo down here, and it's going to look kind of creepy. Yeah, I don't think this is the look for today. Alright, so we'll go back and we'll create a new material. So now we can go down here to material 1. And while we're at it, let's rename it smooth material, so that way we can keep track of what it is. If we go up here to this part here, this is the shader type, and this is what kind of gives the 3D object its shadows. So if we click on it, there's a bunch of different options, so it's something you might want to play around with. For example, if you go to flat, then all of the shadows disappear, and I look very, very pale. Or if we go to something like face paint, it kind of keeps the details of the shading in my face a little bit more. But for if we want to do a really nice smooth face, we're going to go down to the bottom here at retouching. So this one's pretty simple. All you have to do is go and adjust the slider, and this is kind of small, but as you can see, as you put it higher, there's a lot more retouching getting done on my face. And if you put it at 0, then there's none. So let's go at about 50. I feel like that's fine. Alright, so now that we have this nice filter, let's actually go ahead and test this on our phones. For this next part, you're going to need to plug your phone into your computer using a USB cable. So I've already gone ahead and done that, so I'm going to go over here to this left column and click Test on Device. I also already have the app open right now. We're going to click that, and over here is my phone under Preview on Spark AR Player, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit Send. now I'm going to hop over to my phone. Alright, so this is what the filter looks like on my phone. My skin is nice and smooth, and I have this nice logo down here. And if I go ahead and click this, you can get kind of a better view of that. And with that, you've made your first filter. Pretty easy, right? I'll be doing a separate video about how to actually upload those filters to Instagram and Facebook, since that's a slightly longer process. But now you've gotten at least a basic look at some of the tools that Spark AR can do. Stay tuned for our next video, where we're going over how to make green screen backgrounds and person segmentation. See you guys there!